Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Passive Investing meetup. We're meeting and collaborating and always talking about various aspects of commercial real estate and beyond. We are all about helping other passive investors find their way and start investing. But our topics range from active to passive investing to commercial real estate to alternatives and beyond. And today we have an amazing speaker, Dmitriy Fomichenko. He is the founder and president of Sense Financial. It's a boutique financial services firm specializing in self-directed retirement accounts with checkbook control. Dmitry began his career in financial planning and real estate in 2000, and since then he's been a private lender, passive investor, owns multiple investment properties across US, and is a licensed California real estate broker. Over the years, he has taught hundreds of investments and financial planning seminars and has mentored thousands of investors throughout his journey. Our typical disclaimer, I'm not going to read it, but it's today's presentation is for educational purposes only. This is not a solicitation of services or sale by any means. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we have to disclaim to present the disclaimer. Housekeeping rules, feel free to unmute yourself at the end of presentation and ask questions, or if you prefer to ask, just post your question, feel free to post it in the chat and we'll ask after the presentation is over. Our next event is April 28th, and that's going to be a networking event. So bring a friend, bring anyone and everyone you know in real estate and beyond, or anyone who's interested to learn about real estate. We're going to break out into breakout rooms, into hopefully smaller rooms of 3 or 4, and we're going to rotate so people can meet one another, chat, and exchange ideas and exchange information and help each other out. And that's going to be our last event on Thursday. After that, we're actually switching to Wednesday's night. After that, we have a couple more meetups scheduled. So we have Sarah coming and talking about the infinite banking concept. And then due to the popular demand, Dr. Jamil is coming back. So he did an amazing job with goal setting. And a lot of folks asked to bring him back. We're bringing him back, but with a very different topic this time. So whoever knows and heard Dr. Jamil, be sure to join and bring a friend or two. You don't have to be in real estate to do this. His topics are very general and apply to almost everyone. So definitely highly recommend joining us. And then if you need to reach me, these are some of the ways you can reach me. Well, for some of you that are local, you can just knock on my door. I know we have a few local folks here, but in general, social media platforms, my website, Clubhouse, and beyond. So that's that with that. I'm going to start sharing. And Dmitry, you now have the floor. I did make you a co-host, so you should be able to start presenting.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you confirm you can see the first slide?
Yep, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Alina, for inviting me, and always exciting to talk about this topic. Been doing this since 2010, but concept is great. Never gets old. So how to use your retirement account to invest in real estate. Well, thanks for the introduction. Here is my contact info. Feel free to reach out, and all the attendees for Alina's meetup get to have a free consultation with me. So you're welcome to reach out to my office. What we do here at Sense Financial is we help our clients obtain control and protect their retirement accounts. Proverbs 21:5 says, good planning and hard work leads to prosperity, and we want to help you in that journey. Let me just give you, as a way of introduction, this example. One of my clients, old clients, probably 8-9 years ago, but that's his situation. Before coming to us, he had a couple of different retirement accounts valued about $135,000. He was actually watching his portfolio, and he was watching as it was going down. And he was also concerned about the government out of control spending, and talk about potential confiscation of retirement accounts by various means. And so he was doing research, found us online, contacted us, and here's what we did for him. We were able to set up a self-directed solo 401k plan. He was able to purchase a rental property in his 401k, and then he invested portion of his funds into private business. His brother was, that was another startup of his brother. And then he also invested some money in a real estate note. And he's actually combined, he's getting about $1,000 a month in cash flow from those investments. So as you can see, comparing what he had before with what he has now, he has total control over his retirement funds. His investments are much better diversified, and he's actually getting to watch his account grow every single month. So that's kind of the makeovers that we do for our clients. So today I'm going to briefly share with you 3 options for self-directing your retirement account. So there is a self-directed custodial IRA, there is a checkbook IRA, and there is a truly self-directed solo 401k, which is also known as Ultimate Retirement Plan. And you'll see why it has this nickname. So let's quickly take a look at the conventional retirement accounts. Most of you probably have an IRA or 401k or some sort of retirement plan with your employer. And those conventional retirement accounts, the investment choices always confined to the stock market. Well, with this is just an example. When I used to work for a company and I had a 401k, a representative will come in and meet with us about twice a year, will give us a sheet similar to this one. And we will have to pick some of the investments. As you can see, very limited investment choices. All of them are, like I mentioned, confined to the stock market. So there is no true way to diversify. Well, with the self-directed IRA or 401k, you have virtually unlimited investment choices. Many of our clients invest in real estate, but you can also do tax liens, tax deeds, cryptocurrency, mortgage notes, and trust deeds. You can actually invest in private business that are not otherwise available, that not publicly traded. You can invest in real estate internationally. I have clients who invested in Canada, South America, Japan, India, Europe. So you can do all kinds of investing. You can actually do private lending, and you can be the bank, or your 401k can be the bank. And you can also do conventional retirement accounts. So self-directed doesn't mean that you're only confined to real estate, for example. You can certainly do alternative as well as conventional investments. So what is a self-directed IRA? Well, it is a tax-deferred trust account. It's held by the IRS-approved custodian. So some people, when I talk to them, say, well, I do have a self-directed IRA with Schwab. And I ask them, well, can you use your IRA to buy real estate? No. Well, then it's not truly self-directed. It's maybe your custodian gives you a freedom to make your own investments, but it's always within confines or within the boundaries that they set. A truly self-directed IRA does not have those boundaries. So it's held with the custodian that allows alternative investments. Most people not aware that they exist. So we are on the mission to spread the word. But they've been around since 1974, and they're designed to help people like you and I put money away for the retirement. So how does a self-directed IRA works? Well, first, you will open a custodial account. Number two, or step number two, you perform a qualified transfer. When you move funds from your existing IRA or 401k or 403b or whatever account you have. Now, just a quick note here, you can freely move an IRA. But if it is an employer-sponsored plan, such as 401k or 403b, typically, if it's with the current employer, you're probably not going to be able to touch those funds until you leave the employer or reach a retirement age. But it's worth asking and checking with them. Perhaps they will allow you to move portion. But previous employer 401k and IRAs can freely be moved. This is not a taxable event because it's a direct rollover. You're moving funds directly from one retirement account into another, so there is no tax consequences. Then you, as an account holder, you actually direct the custodian, and you then can invest in real estate, you can invest in paper assets and so forth. All of the income going back into the IRA and all of the expenses come in from that account. Let's say if you own a rental property, then all expenses must be paid from the IRA. You cannot use your personal funds. Obviously, the advantage is that you do have access to alternative investments with this type of account. But the disadvantage is that custodian is in business to make profit, make money, and every time you do a transaction, there will be a fee for that transaction, and those typically tend to accumulate as you grow your account. And there's also asset-based fees, and the other disadvantage is that you do have this custodian essentially acting as a middleman, so you don't have direct access to your funds and always have to go through the custodian. That's actually where the checkbook IRA comes in. So the checkbook IRA allows you to have checkbook control over your IRA essentially, and bypass the custodian. You cannot eliminate the custodian with an IRA. You can, however, with the 401k, which I'm going to show you in just the next few slides. But with an IRA, custodian is required. However, with the checkbook IRA, using the structure, you can bypass the custodian. So it is essentially IRA-owned LLC. So there is a special purpose LLC that is created. This LLC is owned by the IRA, and it is actually managed by you. You're the manager of the LLC, and as a manager, you control it. Once it's set up, the custodian is instructed to invest IRA into the LLC. So IRA buys 100% of the LLC units, and then funds are transferred into the LLC checking account. So essentially, you will open a business checking account for the LLC. LLC is a unique entity, standalone entity with its own unique name, its own tax ID number, and you can open a business checking account for this entity, and that's how you control it. That's how you gain the control of your IRA. So like I said, it does allow you to bypass the custodian when making the investment. So as a result, there is no wasted time. There is no fees that you now have to pay for the transactions, because all the transactions do take place inside of an LLC, not on the custodian level. So there is still custodian. You pay just a nominal annual fee to maintain that account, but you do gain the checkbook control, speed, and minimize all the fees, or actually eliminate all the transaction fees. So how does it work? Well, first step is you open a new custodial account with IRS approved custodian that allows alternative investments, just like in the first option. Then you move the funds from your existing IRA to the new one. then a special purpose single member LLC is created. And this LLC is actually owned by the IRA and it is managed by you. Well, at that point, bank account is opened, LLC is funded, and funds are transferred into the LLC checking account. Then you, as the manager of the LLC, you decide again on the investments. But you no longer have to go through the custodian. You no longer have to go to the custodian and tell them, hey, I want to buy this investment, complete certain paperwork, submit that to the custodian, wait for the approval, and then have them advance the funds and charge you a fee for that. So it streamlines the process, speeds up the process significantly, and eliminates all the transaction fees. Now, all the income is going back into the LLC checking account, and all of the expenses are coming out from the LLC checking account. So the rules are still the same as far as the commingling of the personal funds. You can only use these funds to pay for the investments and expenses related to the investment that your LLC owns. Well, let's jump into the solo 401k. It's not a new plan. It's actually defined under Internal Revenue Code Section 401, subsection K, as a retirement savings trust. And it's actually designed for those people who are self-employed or own a small business. They've been around since 2002, when there's been some changes in the tax law that made them very popular. Well, it's not for everyone. So it's designed for those people who meet two criteria. Number one, you have to have a presence of legitimate self-employment activity or business, okay? And it can be anything. Has to be legitimate and has to be active, not passive. A lot of times people ask or tell me, I do own a business, LLC with X rentals, X number of rentals. Well, that's not really a business. That's a investment vehicle. Your LLC is a holding entity. You have to produce earned income. Rental income is passive in its nature. There are many scenarios, and that's actually a good, where it will be good to jump on the phone with me one-on-one and talk about your specifics. So that's number one. Number two, you cannot have any full-time employees. Actually, this number had changed. Right now it's 500 hours. I need to update this. But that's been reduced by the CARES Act, recent tax law. And so as long as you have a business without full-time employees working more than 500 hours a year, then you are eligible to establish this plan. So how does it work? Well, first step is you have to have a sponsor of the plan. And that's either a business or you as a sole proprietor. The business can be in any shape or form. Like I said, can be sole proprietorship, corporation, CS Corp, LLC partnership, you name it. Then the sponsor, your business, adopts the plan, and a plan and trust are created. So here, rather than using a large trust company like Fidelity or Schwab, they are the custodian for many, many clients, 401ks and IRAs. Well, for a custodian is not required with a 401k, so we create a trust specifically for the 401k plan with the purpose of holding assets of the plan. And you become designated trustee, and as a trustee, you control it. Likewise, with the checkbook IRA, you'll be able to open a trust business checking account. And then at that point, you will be able to start making investments. And the investments will be owned by the 401k trust. All the income from the investments is going back into the 401k checking account, and all of the expenses related to that investment must come out from the same 401k checking account. The rules are still the same. You cannot commingle funds with the personal and you must use 401k to pay for the related expenses. So the benefits of the 401k, that's actually what it makes, why people call this ultimate retirement plan. It has very high contribution limits, $63,000. I mean, that's huge. If you and your spouse are together in the business, you can potentially shelter well over $100,000 of your income from taxes. I mean, think about the bottom line impact, how much taxes that can save you. It also has a loan feature that's not available with an IRA, but with the solo 401k, you can actually take a loan up to $50,000 or 50% of the balance, whichever is less, for any reason. And you can use that for the personal reasons. Yeah, this feature is not to be abused because you actually pulling out your retirement dollars from a tax deferred vehicle where they could be invested and growing tax deferred. So you don't just want to use this for any reason. It's really for, you know, emergencies or there really should be a justification, in my opinion, but you could use it for any reason. Also with this plan, there is a built-in ROT provision allowing you to make post-tax contributions up to $26,000. And that is not dependent on your income, unlike with the Roth IRA. You might be over the limit if you're making too much by government standard. Well, it also gives you checkbook control. There is no custodian, there is no LLC needed, so it's very cost effective. And that also allows your spouse to participate, dropping the cost even further because basically, if your spouse is involved in the business, spouse can also participate. And last but not least, it is exempt from unrelated debt finance income, which is income derived from the financed portion of the property. If you buy real estate or invest in a syndication that uses leverage, that will produce UDFI. And inside of an IRA, it will be taxed, but 401k is exempt from this type of income. So the bottom line with the self-directed IRA or 401k, you can achieve true diversification. The credit for this cartoon goes to my daughter. Been a number of years ago, but man and wife standing, man holding a basket, all eggs fell off because the bottom fell off. And folks, it happened with the stock market in the past, it will happen again. There is always cycle. So you want to make sure that you don't have all of your eggs in one basket. And if you think you're maybe in mutual funds or different stocks, well, it's still one asset class. You don't have true diversification. True diversification can be accomplished by investing in different asset classes. Ecclesiastes 11:2 says, divide your portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on earth. I mean, who could have predicted this COVID thing, right? Last year, no one, right? Well, I'm sure it affected some of the investments. For me personally, because I'm diversified and I invest in various assets, I had very, very little impact. So you want to do that as well. Again, allows you to invest in all kinds of investments. The only limitation is described in the Internal Revenue Code section 4975. IRS does not allow you to invest your retirement funds in collectibles, S corporation. You can have S corporation and set up a 401k plan. You just cannot invest in the S corporation using your IRA or 401k, and life insurance contracts. In addition to that, IRS says that yourself and your immediate family members consider it disqualified. So here is a list of disqualified persons. And again, according to the IRS, your IRA or 401k cannot engage in any transaction with a disqualified person. And so here is just a list of what those transactions are. But to summarize, essentially, it's any transaction or any engagement of a disqualified person in a transaction with an IRA will lead to a prohibited transaction. Just maybe a couple examples for you. Being a real estate agent, right? If you are a real estate agent and you have a solo 401k, you can act as an agent on a transaction that your 401k is buying or selling property. You cannot do any work on the property. You cannot live in the property yourself. So in other words, you cannot receive benefits from that. Your child, if you own a rental property in a town where there's a college and then your child goes there, cannot live there because that's receiving benefits. So the bottom line, all transactions involving your IRA or 401k must be arm's length. Buying real estate inside of an IRA is fairly easy. All the gains are sheltered from taxes or tax-free with a 401k or IRA that is Roth. You'll pay taxes at a later day, so you actually are able to accumulate much greater balance in a shorter period of time. And again, just to emphasize that you cannot commingle the funds, cannot use the funds now. All income must go back to the account and all expenses must be paid from the account. Financing a property is also common and very doable, but because you as disqualified person cannot provide a guarantee for the loan, it must be non-recourse. Typically, those types of loans, they require 30 to 50% down. Property is the only security for the loan, hence non-recourse loan. You're personally not responsible. Lender will require that property produce cash flow enough to pay the mortgage and have for reserves, and will trigger UDFI tax in an IRA. And there's only a handful of banks that do those. But they're certainly doable. I've done it. Many of my clients done it. It's a great way to actually increase your ROI because of use of leverage. So just a quick comparison. I'm not going to go over this, but as you can see, you can do alternative investments with all of them, but IRA LLC or a checkbook IRA and solo 401k has some additional advantages that are not available with the custodial IRA. As I mentioned, you are welcome to talk to me one-on-one about your particular situations. It's complimentary. You can go to this link directly, or there is also a link on our website. Just if you go to the homepage and scroll down, sensefinancial.com, it will take you to my calendar in real time. You can pull my schedule and you can block the time and be happy to chat with you. Again, that's my contact info. Feel free to reach out. And I think we still have some time left for questions, Alina, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dmitry. That was very informative and detailed at the same time. Thank you so much. And we have a lot of questions. It seems like a small but very engaging group, so it's going to be really exciting. There's a ton of questions. Before we go into questions, we typically don't endorse anyone. We don't promote people. We do not allow promotions. But I simply just want to state the fact. I've been with Dmitry as a solo 401k investor 3 years, 4, Dmitry, I don't even remember.
Yeah, about 4 years now.
Yeah, I sent many clients. I have never heard a complaint, only good things from people. But in general, superb service, great customer service, good team. So we're very happy with the services that Sense Financial is providing to us. Thank you for that, Dmitry.
Thanks, Alina. It's a joy to serve you.
Thank you. So first question from Jagdish. I was under the impression that only business owners could open solo 401k. So that's correct. How can a salaried employee who has a company-sponsored 401k do this? I don't think we
Well,
can.
if you are a salaried employee, that doesn't prevent you from setting up a solo 401k. Again, to remind you, there are two criteria that you must meet to set up a solo 401k plan. You must have legitimate self-employment activity or business, and cannot have any employees working for you, non-owner employees other than yourself and your spouse. Working for you more than 500 hours. So I have many clients actually who are full-time W-2 employees, but they have some kind of a side gig. It might be a real estate agent who does few sales a year, or even just recently I had a client who is actually doesn't have the intention of selling for other people. He just got the license for himself, just to do his own deals. So he'll expecting a couple deals or a couple transactions a year. Well, that is a legitimate self-employment activity. He'll be generating some profit from that, and that's sufficient to establish the 401k plan. So whether you have a W-2 job or not is irrelevant. What's relevant is, again, having presence of self-employment activity. The key is it must be legitimate. You know, it can be a hobby, right? If you're a photographer and you maybe do a couple of photo shoots and generate $100 a year, that's not a business. That's like a hobby. But again, it can be anything. I have many clients who are flippers. They flip homes, full-time and part-time. I have, very simple that anyone pretty much can do, driving for Uber or Lyft, right? You become self-employed, you set your own hours. The benefit is that you can generate some additional income. You control when you drive, how much. You can do it once a month. And that will make you eligible for solo 401k. There are multiple benefits to that, but must be legitimate, for profit and no full-time employees.
Thank you. Alina, is it okay if I had a follow-up question that I'd already posted, but it makes sense to talk about it now because it's related to what Dmitry just said. So follow-on question would be, is there any constraint on the contribution based on how much income you make in that business, right? So what I mean by that is, I have a single member LLC. I used to do a contracting job before. Let's say if I do something, I'm just making this up, and the annual income is 5,000. I'm just making this up in addition to a day job. Does that constrain how much I can contribute, or that big number that you showed there, which was like 60K or something, is still available to contribute?
Contributions can only be made from your earnings. So you can't contribute, 58,000, which is the limit, if your income is only $5,000. So yes, you will be confined. The contributions will be confined based on your income from your side gig that you do.
Okay.
So you cannot contribute to retirement account more than you earn. And if for the solo 401k, that's your self-employment income.
Got it. Thanks.
Next question from Jeff. What if you run low on funds in an IRA on property? Can you lend you IRA money?
You personally are a disqualified person. You absolutely may not lend money to your IRA. But there's a few things I can say about this. If there is first of all, you have to plan for it. If you invest in a syndication, as an example, you invest once and then there is no additional draws. You're not going to be low on funds there. You'll typically be receiving distributions quarterly or monthly. So you'll be getting the income back. Your IRA will be growing. But if you invest in for example, a rental property, you have to have reserves. You got to plan for that. You got to have a few months reserves, and account for that. If you if you want to buy property for 100,000, you don't want to have $100,100 in your IRA and go for that property. You do want to have reserves. But if you are in a situation where, it's really unexpected and you do need the funds, there's a few things you can do. You can always make a contribution. Right now, you can contribute for last year still, and you can contribute for this year. That's $14,000 or $12,000 to $14,000, right? If you have some funds in other retirement account, you can do rollover. You can borrow money, but not from non-disqualified person. So that's also a possibility. But you personally and your family members cannot lend to your IRA. You could potentially sell portion of the property and bring in a partner. Again, there are ways to deal with that. But the first is proper planning will help you avoid a situation like this.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dmitry. Next question. Can you use funds in self-directed IRA more than once a year to purchase real estate, as opposed to once a year withdrawal and pay back of a regular IRA?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, or the question doesn't fully make sense to me, because you don't withdraw the money from an IRA. Your IRA buys or makes the investment. So if you have, again, let's use $100,000 in an IRA. If you have $100,000 and you made the investment, and then you sold that investment 6 months later, or you got the money back from that investment, and you have the cash available, of course you can make investment. There is no limit, how many investments you can make in a year. There is really no limit. But yeah, if you have cash, you certainly can make the investment. There is no such thing as a limitation once a year or something. But keep in mind, you're not taking the money out. Maybe I'm trying to kind of read between the lines. Maybe the person who asked the question is asking about doing like indirect rollover, where you can actually take the money out. Alina, were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I'm saying I don't think that's it, but I was going to ask Alice, sorry for the interruption.
Hi.
Do you want to clarify?
Well, what I was doing, maybe it's changed since Dmitry went through everything that he presented, but the way I've used my IRA right now, because I'm self-employed, I've taken a withdrawal once a year to purchase a piece of property. And then I have 60 days to refinance that property and put the money back into the IRA without taxes and penalties. You can only do that once a year.
I was going to say that was kind of my guess that's what you were referring to. This is something completely different, completely unrelated.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was.
You're taking a withdraw, and there's a rule that if you essentially, if you take the money from your IRA and then if you deposit that into another retirement account within 60 days, you can do that. There is no taxes. But that's not what we're talking about here. This is you're not taking any money out. You're investing inside of your IRA.
So right. So I'm wondering if this is a better option for me than what we've been doing.
Well, I'm not sure your option is a good one, because again, this option is designed for you to move money from one account to another, one retirement account to another. So you kind of using that as a loophole to buy real estate. But what if you're 1 day late returning those funds? That will be a taxable event.
Correct.
So that's really the strategy is not intended to use the way you're using that. So you got to be careful with this. Again, it may work for you, but somebody else may get screwed up on this and get a big tax bill. So there are other sources of funds to tap into, even if it's private money to buy a property. It might be more expensive than using your own IRA money, but hey, you're not taking this huge risk. and it's a business expense anyways. But yeah, certainly it's just a different strategy, Alice.
Right, that's what I was looking at to compare. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Excellent. Next question from Jagdish. Are the contribution limits to solar constrained by the business income?
Yeah, that's the one I already
Dmitry,
asked.
Yes,
But
yeah,
one,
it is.
one thing regarding the checkbook IRA, you mentioned that one could transfer previous employer 401k to the checkbook IRA, right? So that basically means that you can transfer from previous accounts, but but in terms of active contributions, those may not those may not be eligible because of whatever, you're already maxing out on employer 401k. So previous employer one can be done here, right? That's what it sounds like.
Well, you can for an IRA, you can all retirement accounts can be funded two ways. Number one is a rollover from another retirement account. So if you have old 401k, you can certainly transfer that. And then you can also make a contribution. The contribution limit on IRA is $6,000 a year. Contribution limit to a 401k is $58,000 a year. So you can make a contribution to an IRA, but it's limited to $6,000.
So Jagdish, I can give you an example what I did. I had a rollover from a prior employer. I set it up into the checkbook IRA. That was the initial source. And then whatever income I was producing with my company went into that solo 401k after that. As long as the account types are identical. So from tax deferred to tax deferred, from tax free to tax free, that has to be there aligned.
Yeah. So the way I'm understanding this is that, so obviously 6K a year is not really significant enough to, get into real estate. So if I was to take a previous employer's 401k, roll that into the the checkbook IRA, and then contribute 6K over and above, right? Because I wouldn't be able to do much more than that. I already have an employer sponsored 401k where I'm doing the 19,500 every year. So it looks like that is a possibility, because that would be a more significant sum of money.
Absolutely. That would make perfect sense. Exactly.
Yeah, because otherwise the 6K per year would be take years to get anywhere, anywhere meaningful. So, okay, understood.
It would take a while to get to the reasonable amount to invest, for sure.
Yep.
Next question from Rafael. What is the process to decide if you want to move the solo 401k to new business? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, I'll try to answer that. It is possible. So, I mean, it happens. Doesn't happen with everybody, but it is. We deal with that, every so often. Just in fact, recently, one of the clients, he's actually shutting down one of his businesses and he's starting a new one. So if you have a solo 401k set up for a business that you're shutting down, but you have another business, the plan can be amended and restated and basically move to a new sponsor. So there can be a new company or new entity that will be the sponsor from this point on. So I guess you can say that you can move 401k from one business to another.
Next question. Once I hit 59.5, is it better to withdraw for the real estate investing or to borrow from the plan?
Well, I can't answer that question. It depends on a number of factors that are unknown to me about the person who's asking the question. So
yeah, I can clarify that a little bit. My concern would be if it's an active company 401 plan that I'm still contributing to, A, they may not let me withdraw funds versus borrowing, and B, if they do, they may block from new contributions for a time.
Usually that's not the case. I mean, if you're 59.5, then you should be able to actually access the funds and you can take a distribution or you can move them to self-directed IRA, for example, versus borrowing. Again, those are two different strategies. You should be able to do what you proposing here, but does it make sense? Which one makes more sense? It depends on a number of factors that, again, we don't know. We don't know what kind of investments you're going to be making,
Right.
And how does, if you're going to do it personally, how will that affect your bottom line versus investing inside of a retirement account? So you can do either or. What's best for you might not be best for me and for somebody else.
Right. So do corporate plans generally allow rollovers to a self-directed while you're still employed, or do they usually make you wait till you leave the
Well,
company?
if you over 60, then you should be able to do it. If you're not at retirement age, usually no. But if you reach a retirement age, usually yes. Usually you should be able to access those funds.
Okay, so I thought the 59.5 was just to remove the 10% penalty, because still, if the company allows me to roll over, then obviously I can do what I want to do within a self-directed account.
Yeah, it's a question to direct to your plan administrator.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
ask them, can you do? You don't have to mention self-directed IRA. They may not know what that is. Just tell them IRA. Can you move it to an IRA?
Right.
If the answer is yes, then you can move it to checkbook IRA or a solo 401k or any other plan. As long as you can move it to an IRA, you can move it to any other retirement plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Next question from Leon. Leon, I think your question has been answered. You're asking if there is not enough money in solo 401k to purchase property. So that sounds very similar to what Jagdish was asking.
Well, if you don't have enough money to purchase property, you don't purchase property. You have to look. You have to look for investment that you can afford. If you cannot afford property A, maybe you can afford property B. Or if you cannot afford property A and property B, well, you have some funds, maybe you can lend it to somebody who wants to buy property A or property B. Maybe you can be a private lender. For me personally, that's a preferred way for me to invest my retirement funds. I like to be a private lender and use my 401k money as a bank.
Leon is asking if you can borrow, if you don't have enough money.
Well, yeah, you can borrow, as I mentioned in one of the slides. You can use leverage, and you typically need 40% down if you're buying inside of an IRA or 401k. But yeah, you could borrow. That's certainly a possibility. Again, you have to look at the numbers and see what you can afford.
Good evening, everyone. This is Leon speaking. Thanks, Dmitry. My question was about sad circumstances where, let's say, I'm buying the property and I don't have $1,000 to cover something, title report, attorney's fee, something extremely small amount, very small. Property can be $50,000 and the IRA can have 52. Just, I think you answered my question. Very, very tiny amount. Some water sewer bill, something that just doesn't add up. Can this IRA borrow temporarily to cover and then maybe refund it back? I'm talking about very small things, very small amounts.
I'm sorry. So what is the question? You have a small expense, but maybe I missed the question.
I think you answered it. My example was a property, let's say, is worth $50,000. I need to pay for an attorney. I need to pay closing fees, title search, maybe an insurance. And for some reason, I miscalculated and I don't have enough. I need $500 more, or maybe $1,000 more. I have 50 to buy the house, but I don't have enough to cover every expense at closing. Very little, pocket change. The whole deal can get ruined, in my opinion. I think you answered my question.
Yeah, you just need to look for a deal that you can afford. If you're short $1,000, that means you might be short. Actually, in reality, you might be short $6,000 because you need to have reserves after you close. you're missing $1,000 for, to the full amount, plus you don't have reserves. So it's not just $1,000 that you're missing. You have to factor in reserves as well. So my recommendation will be for you, look for either finance the property. You can actually, if it's a $50,000 and you got $50,000 in your IRA, my recommendation, go for property that is worth $100,000, but buy a better property and finance it. Put 30–40% down. You have enough in your IRA to do that, and that's going to leave you, close to $10,000 left in the reserves, and you actually own a property worth $100,000. So I think it's better to finance, because the bottom line is going to be better. The end result will be better. You're using somebody else's money to buy the property. Your ROI will be greater. But or just find a property that you can afford and you have enough funds to buy and for the reserves.
Awesome. Let's see. Rick is asking, Dmitry, if the slides will be available.
Sure. Yes, I can provide a copy. Again, you can
I can
email me, and I can send you the slides.
Yeah, just send me a copy and I'll distribute to everyone.
Sure. Yes, Rick, you're muted. Unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, looks like we answered all of the questions from the chat.
Dmitry, I was just thanking you. Thank you for sending the slides when you get to that.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. You guys.
Oh, where are you located? Where are you located?
I'm sorry?
Where are you located?
We're in Southern California, in Orange County.
Oh, okay. I've been there.
We have a couple of minutes for one final question. Is there anything quick that anyone wants to ask Dmitry? Please copy his contact information if you want to ask questions. Have a free consultation, as Dmitry suggested. Feel free to do so.
Is that a Corona number? 949 near Corona?
It's well, it's Orange County area code.
Yeah.
Corona is close to us.
Okay.
Very good. Looks like we're out of questions. Again, Dmitry, thank you so much. It's been a great presentation, a lot of value, awesome questions group. We have had a smaller group, but much more engaged, a lot of good questions. So thank you so much, everyone.
Sure.
And I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Dmitry.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.